So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day our producer Louis had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithm really aren't that happy if a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could Xtra whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra.
Well, Richard, last episode of On the Track Extra, we looked at the lake monsters of the Northern Hemisphere. Now, let's have a look at the ones in the Southern Hemisphere, because I've always been interested in is it Najalito?
Yes,
in Argentine. Let's start off with that.
Well, it's one of several lakes where there are supposed to be large unknown animals. There's another one. The story appeared in the 70s. I can't remember the name of the lake now. I'm sure I can find it out, but there was a landslide somewhere, and the story goes it disturbed something in this lake, and they saw this typical long-necked, said it was silvery coloured, long-necked creature, and it was supposed to have preyed on livestock. But it was one of these stories from the early 70s that just petered out and disappeared. But there are a number of these lakes in South America, and generally they are the typically long-necked creatures that are seen elsewhere, but also there are ones that are like upturned boats, and they've been heard making breathing noises when they come to the surface, a sort of a gasping breathing sound, which is very interesting. And there's been a number of mass sightings of these creatures, whatever the hell they are.
And they've been filmed at least twice.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that there was the idea that there were plesiosaurs living in some of the Argentine lakes, and even there was a guy from Buenos Aires Zoo took an expedition to try and find them, and he said he found tracks by the shore of the lake, but no plesiosaur. I'm pretty sure that there are no plesiosaurs in Argentine lakes, or indeed anywhere in the world today.
Yeah, I wish people would stop fantasizing about the prehistoric mega reptiles. Apart from birds, there are no dinosaurs or any of the other prehistoric mega reptiles left alive. They were dying out anyway, and then got finished off by the Katy extinction event. Capiche? It's true, isn't it, Rich?
Well, there may be some colossal crocodiles and pythons and anacondas and lizards, but no true dinosaurs except for birds, which is a terrible shame, but there you go.
So what do you think about the Argentine lake monsters?
They're very strange. With the northern ones, you can say, yeah, maybe they're huge eels, maybe they're huge catfish. These Argentinian ones are different. I mean, I don't know if there are large eels in South America and in the Andes and so forth up in these lakes. I think a lot of them are landlocked, which is strange. So what the hell they are is another thing altogether. I mean, obviously there are going to be some lies, some hoaxes, some misinterpretations, but there seems to be something there that's worthy of a closer look, and I'd certainly like to go over there and investigate. And then of course you've got Australia, southern Australia, the bunyips, which the bunyip is a term. It's a corruption of the Australian Aboriginal word banyip, which just means water monster, and there are all sorts of bunyips, but mostly they were said to be dog-like, have dog-like faces, these big, bulky, hairy animals with dog-like faces. And I think a lot of them refer to seals or sea lions that have swam upriver and gone inland. Because there was I think it was on the Murray River, there was a leopard seal that had been captured hundreds of miles inland.
It was about something stupid like 800 miles from the sea or something.
And its stomach contained a duck-billed platypus. It had eaten a duck-billed platypus. So,
is that the one that the newspaper said truly a bunyip within a bunyip?
Yes. Imagine that you're an Australian Aborigine living inland, probably never seen the sea, used to the fauna around you, and one day this huge thing and a big bull sea lion, it's the size of a bear.
And leopard seals are very long, very fierce.
Yes.
And huge.
Snake-like in their outline, yes.
They're about 8 foot long or something,
yeah,
aren't
there
they?
are a couple in the Natural History Museum in Edinburgh. And the thing that strikes you is the size of their heads. They have these great wedge-shaped heads, like huge outsized bull terriers. And imagine you're an Aborigine, maybe going off hunting for some fish or collecting water lilies, and suddenly this thing comes exploding out of the water, bellowing and roaring, and it would be utterly terrifying. You've never seen anything like it before, and it would be a monster. And again, there are stories of big eels. I remember hearing somewhere of an eel estimated to be 14 foot long, being seen on land, slithering along on this farm between lakes. And it was twice the length of the vehicle that the witness was in.
Well, I know that there's a species of eel in New Zealand which gets up to 11 or 12 foot long.
Yes, and they're very bulky as well. They're very chunky. And in New Zealand, they have a creature called a taniwha, which is roughly analogous to a dragon. And some of them live in water, some of them are lake monsters, and some of them live in caves and underground. And just like in Iceland, where you can't move certain rocks and boulders because people think you upset the elves, you can't do it in New Zealand as well because of the taniwha. Where you dig, you have to only dig in certain places or get permission to dig or move things around. And Ireland has it as well with the fairy bushes, the fairy trees, similar setup.
Which I think is absolutely bloody smashing. I think one of many problems which the contemporary society all over the world has, we've rejected the teachings and the knowledge of the people who came before us. Still in New Zealand, the most famous New Zealand aquatic cryptid is the Waitariki. Explain, Richard, for those people who don't know.
The Waitariki is a small aquatic mammal that was reported in the early 20th century and the 19th century.
By small, you mean?
About the size of a small dog, about this big.
Archie size or a bit bigger?
About Archie size, but it was said to be either rat-like or beaver-like, and live in water and make nests or dams that were shaped like beehives. And as far as I know, there's been no recent sightings of it. Some people said it looked a lot more like an otter. Some people said it was like a beaver, some like a rat, some like an otter. But it was a brown-furred, smallish mammal that lived in water and made these strange nests. Now, New Zealand is famous for having no native mammals apart from bats and marine mammals. All the mammals that are there, like brush-tailed possums, were brought over by human beings. Some people have postulated it could have been a monitoring, a relative of the duck-billed platypus and the echidnas, and that it's now died out. But it's a poorly known but very interesting cryptid.
I read somewhere that there were claims by somebody reasonably reputable that it could have been one of the early mammal-like reptiles.
Oh yes, yeah.
And I can't remember, what are they called, the mammal-like reptiles? There's a proper name for them.
Synapsid?
Yeah, I think it was synapsid.
Darren would know that.
Yes, he would. Shall we phone him up in the middle of the night and say, "Oi, what's a mammal-like reptile, Daz?"
Yeah, I think if I were a betting man, I'd put more money on it being a monochrome if it existed.
Another theory that I read, which I thought was very interesting, although unlikely, is that they were sea otters that had somehow rafted across on huge vegetation islands from the west coast of America.
I've never heard that. Never heard that theory at all.
I like the theory. I don't believe it at all, but it's a great theory. Even though you don't believe that something is true, you can still admire the imagination that went into it.
And then you have the New Zealand Bigfoot, which I think is one of the least likely, apart from the British Bigfoot, one of the least likely creatures, or least likely cryptids. And I can't recall a decent, convincing sighting of it anywhere, just hearsay and rumour.
What other southern hemisphere lake monsters are there? Are there any lake monsters in... The only one I know of in Papua New Guinea was the one that we and Darren, between us, discovered what it was and claimed and showed that it was a pair of saltwater crocodiles, showing what happens when a mummy saltwater crocodile and a daddy saltwater crocodile love each other very much.
I can't recall any. There are plenty of accounts of gigantic crocodiles from New Guinea, but I can't think of any lake monsters as in supposed unknown species. In South Africa, there was the monster of the Howick Falls. In Kenyamba, the monster of the Howick Falls, which is more folkloric. I think it's a descendant of the very ancient aquatic dragons, which are depicted in rock art in South Africa going back 75,000 years and seem to be associated with rain, because in Kanyamba is supposed to come up out of the Howick Falls and go into the sky and create rain, rather like Oriental dragons do. And it's said that now when it looks down and it sees all the tin roofs of the shanty towns, it thinks that's pools of water. It releases more water, according to the folklore. Then you've got Nyame Nyame of Lake Kariba and the Kariba Dam, which is supposed to be the serpent dragon of Lake Kariba.
But isn't Lake Kariba a completely artificial lake?
Yeah, but this creature, this Nyame Nyame, was supposed to inhabit the rivers in the area beforehand.
Something that's always interested me is that humans seem to populate every stretch of water with a monster, even down to people in a small village with the village pond saying, "Oh, that's got the biggest pike you've ever seen in there." And I have heard whispers, although nothing substantiatable, that Rockland Water now has a lake monster, and that was man-made, created in the early 60s, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's because water is a alien environment to us and a dangerous one. You can drown in an inch of water. And sometimes these stories turn out to be true, like we found out. We found out with
Martin Mere.
with Ormskirk.
Martin Mere, yeah.
Yeah, Martin Mere, the monster of Martin Mere, which turned out to be a whacking great Wells catfish
Now,
in a very small lake.
anybody who's ever read On the Track of Unknown Animals by Bernard Heuvelmans will know about Baron Georges Cuvier and his rash dictum, which said, "There are no more large land mammals left to be discovered." And within a few years, there was discovered the mountain gorilla, the what?
Malayan tapir.
Malayan tapir, the mountain gorilla, all sorts of animals proved George Cuvier wrong. Well, I want to add to this Freeman's dictum, because we got to this lake where there had been reports of a lake monster, and it was relatively shallow, and it was a wildfowl sanctuary owned by the Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust. So the water was very much polluted by waterbird shit, and Richard came, because he was in a bad mood, because he had to get up early that morning so he could drive all the way up the motorway, and he came, looked at the lake and said in his best northern accent, which I'm not going to try and copy, and I will be editing, I will be beeping this, "Look at this fucking piece of shit. There's no fucking way is there any fucking big creature in there. There's no fucking way I've just wasted my fucking time and got out of bed in the fucking morning because of this." And then what happened within 10 minutes, Richard?
Well, this lake is mostly about knee deep. It's a couple of acres. Dirty water. It looked like it couldn't support anything bigger than a tench. And I did remember saying there is no way a large animal can exist unknown in this lake. And then I was walking around the lake on my own, and I saw it. It came to the surface about 6 feet away from where I was. It was a huge Wells catfish, maybe 8 feet long, thrashing around in the water, looking like a huge draft excluder. Blacky green, texture like rubber, this rubbery, oily looking skin. And it dived and came up again briefly and then dived again and was gone. But it was transparently a big Wells catfish. And the stories was that there was something the size of a car in there, and it was attacking swans and geese. Well, it wasn't as big as a car. It was more like a sofa in size. But it had been attacking swans and geese and trying to pull them under. And Pat Wisniewski, the head ornithologist there, had seen it. And a number of the bird spotters, the twitchers we talked to who came there regularly, had seen it. I'd seen it take coots and moorhens and things. But it seemed to have moved on, because once again these things can crawl around on land, and I think one good storm, a bit of a flood, and it's moved on somewhere else. I never thought it lived there since time immemorial, but I think it was just holed up in there for a year or so.
Well, we did discover that back in the 1860s, the Acclimatization Society, we're going to have to do a show about the Acclimatization Society one time, because they are totally wonderful part of British zoological history. The Acclimatization Society, who were an organisation who spent all their time and effort bringing animals from all over the British Empire, setting them free in the British countryside, and once they got acclimatized, they'd shoot them and eat them, which is totally, utterly pointless and absolutely wonderfully quixotic. Even though as a vegan, I can't really approve of it. But the Acclimatization Society did, and we know this, we found the records, introduce some Wells catfish, young Wells catfish, into the Liverpool Leeds Canal. And either the winter before or 2 winters before these sightings started, there had been a really, really bad winter storm, and I think that the fish that had been put in there in the 1860s, one of them is still alive, grown to an absolutely huge size, and just like the little fish in the song that my daddy used to sing me when I was a little boy, they swam right over the dam and ended up in Martinmere Lake. And now there's probably, like Richard said, been more huge storms, and they've ended up somewhere else, because it's all part of a network of waterways, some of them artificial, some of them natural, all across that part of northern England. We're going to be back next week. That's the end of On the Track Extra for this episode. I'm enjoying these impromptu chats with Richard. We'll probably be back again next week or in a couple of weeks once we think of something else to do. And until then, assuming you're there watching the show on Saturday, I'm going to be doing all the gubbins I normally do on Saturday afternoon. The notifications and the live chat and all the other stuff. So, assuming that you're there watching it and I'll be there doing it, I'll be seeing you.